hour. We're going to do some demonstration and have question and answer time. And this one is for insurers, self-insurers, third-party administrators, and trading partners. I wanted to remind everyone that we are recording this meeting as we have been with our other answer hours and training so that we can put it up on our website later for people to review or to view for the first time if they are unable to make it. And also like to remind everyone that we definitely welcome questions. We have the chat feature in WebEx. If you can open your chat feature and put questions in there to everyone so that we can go ahead and monitor those questions and call them out and then answer them for everyone as well. That's very helpful. So my name is Melissa Parrish, and I am one of the work comp program supervisors at the Department of Labor and Industry in our work comp department. Those of you who were on last week and the week before, or I guess it was 2 weeks before that one, I've been doing the answer hours the last couple here. So hello again to everyone who's joining us again. And I just wanted to remind everyone that we have this answer hour demo and then another one next week as well. And we'll remind you of that at the end of this presentation as well. So let's see here. There we go. On our agenda today, we're going to do a demo in the campus system, walking through a claim part 2. We're going to focus really on the PPD follow-up web form and on, oh, you know what? I apologize. I caught my own error here. It's not the discontinuance of info web form. We have already gone through that. It is the dependency info web form. I apologize for that mistake right off the bat. That's on me. But those are the two web forms we're going to look at today. PPD follow-up and the dependency. And I wanted to go ahead and show you on our website here. So again, I know many of you might have some of these pages bookmarked, but I am going to start from the beginning for anyone who wants to follow along on your browser, how to get to the quick reference guides that are available for today's presentation. If you go to our website, the dli.mn.gov, or you can certainly just pull up Google and Google Minnesota DLI, go ahead and click on the workers' compensation button. And then from that, click on the Work Comp Campus button. And there's a training link that you can click on here underneath training. So there's some good information here for registration for some of the new training sessions. I know we had a training session yesterday for the external user campus view with a lot of participants and a lot of really good questions. So thanks to all of you who came to that. I also wanted to point out later today, one of the 2 group management trainings that will be happening on group management. So that's really important to go to if you're someone who's going to be doing group management for your company. And thanks to Angie, she did put the link in the chat. So you can certainly just click on that, which is very helpful. And then you can see the other trainings that are coming up. We talked about those last week, so I'm not going to go into all of those. But I did want to mention that on the side here, you can see the different work comp campus for and then different stakeholder groups. So you might find yourself in the insurers and self-insurers or in the trading partners. You can click on either one of those two to get to where the documents I'm going to show you, or I think Angie might be putting a link up as well in the chat. But if you click on that link there, you can go right down and see the presentations and video recordings from past answer hours. So last week we had attached it to the meeting invite, but I do know that that did not work for everyone, and I apologize for that. So today, if you want to go back and find that filing a benefit addendum web form or filing the discontinuance web form, both of them are available from the October 7th presentation. And then today you'll see the October 14th presentation here with the 2 quick reference guides that we'll be going over. So we're actually going to do the PPD follow-up first, and then we're going to be doing the filing of a dependency web form. So I do see that Angie put that link directly in the chat, so that's great. Feel free to take a moment right now to access those and pull up those quick reference guides to follow along if you'd like. All right. Oh, you know what? I'm going to go right back to my browser because I am going to go right into campus here. So I am going to sign in as a campus user, just like you will be doing. And when you do sign in, you will get your message here that you need to agree with the access requirement acknowledgement if you want to move on. So I'll go ahead and agree to that. And you can see this scrolling green bar at the top. is the indication that our system is thinking, kind of like you'll often see the little scrolling circle in the middle on other applications as it pulls up the claims I have. So when you sign in, you're going to see your name up here in the top right corner. So I'm Melissa, claim admin today. You'll see your name. You'll have your profile, your groups, your logout options up there. And you'll have some overview information on your dashboard, your open claims, events, and documents. For those of you who were on the training yesterday, Denise and Deb walked through a lot of this. And so if you didn't get a chance, feel free to look at that recording as they really walked through all the different tabs and calendars in a lot more detail. But for today, we're going to look down on the claims we have here. And I only have 11 total right now. Obviously, that's a pretty small number compared to what you guys will be mostly seeing on your dashboard when you log in. But a reminder that you can expand how many you see on a page. So here I've got all 11 of mine instead of just 10. And you can also do your filter. So if you know that you're looking for a specific claim, I might go in and filter out that I only want to see claims of Ashley. And oops, you can put in the full name or part of the name and apply your filter. And then it would just pull up the specific claims for that individual.
Melissa, I just really
Yes.
quickly wanted to chime in. For those of you who are attending the group management training, we'll be going through there are a couple different ways to allocate access to these claims for your people in your organization. So what Melissa is showing you right now is when the claims are present on the My Claims queue. So just as a heads up, there will be a few different ways to grant access. I just wanted to make sure that that was known, that even if you are not specifically named on a claim and it's not in your My Claims queue, there is another view for getting to all the claims associated with an organization, and we will be covering that pretty in depth in our group management training today.
Perfect. Thank you, Angie. And a reminder, if you can't come to today's training, there is another one next week, but they also both are being recorded. So you'll be able to catch up on that information even if you cannot attend real time. So I am going to go into a claim here, and I'm going into this claim as a claim admin. In this case, I'm using a scenario where I have filed already on this claim. I'm going to go down to my reporting history. Oh, sorry, that was a quick scroll. I should probably point out at the top here, you see the employee name, date of injury, and some of the other main claim information like the JCN and the dashboard of this particular claim, the claim details page. But I'm going to scroll way down to the bottom and go to my reporting history. And you'll see that in this case, I have filed the first report of injury. I filed my initial payment to start temp total disability benefits. I also suspended temp total disability benefits. And I've now filed a PY because there was a PPD rating that I paid. As the claim admin, when you're filing a PPD rating, when you're sending in that payment, there is a PPD web form that we're going to go through right now that accompanies that payment information and has some more information on it as required in Minnesota Rules 5220-2550, where we need to have the information served on or given to the employee for the PPD schedule number. And if there's future payments, like if you're paying periodically, the information is included there. It's also a place that we can attach medical records and such. So at the top of the claim here, once you're on the correct claim that you need to file on, you will go over to submit filing and click on that, just like we did last week. And then today, though, we are going to pick out the PPD follow-up web form and click on save. So we are now on the permanent partial disability benefit web form, and we are going to fill out the information that's applicable to our claim. In this case, we are talking about the distal clavicle. There is a 3% rating that we have on a medical report. As you can see here, I'm just going to pull onto my screen. I have this very official looking mocked up surgical report, and this is what I'm using, knowing that there's a 3% rating here. I'm going to be using this medical report as the reason why I made the payment and now why I'm putting in the PPD web form. You need to add your applicable PPD schedule rule number. So I'm on 5223, subpart 2C for my shoulder, and the total amount that's being paid is $2,364. Here you have an opportunity to say whether or not the rating information is based on a medical report and or if it is a preliminary rating. In this case, I'm not going to say it's a preliminary rating, but I am basing it on a medical report that we have. And it is a surgical report that I have. And I'm going to say that it's from Dr. Okay. The medical report was dated 6/01/2019. And in my claim here, I'm saying that I received it on 6/4/2019. So that is the date that the insurer received the report. Now, the payment information for your PPD, you'll be explaining on this web form how you're making your payments. There's two options, the periodic payments or the lump sum. I'm going to show you the periodic here, that you would put in the periodic payment date from the initial one, as well as the last. Your periodic payment amount, so you'd be putting in, if that comp rate was $600 a week, and that's what you were paying, you would be putting the 600 here, and then choosing the frequency, I'd be putting in weekly. In this case, I paid a lump sum, so I'm going to go up and choose that it was a lump sum payment that I made. And my payment date was 6/04/2019. I paid it as soon as I knew about it. The employee approved of the lump sum on that same date. So in my situation, I got that medical report. I communicated with the employee. They gave their approval per Minnesota statute 176-101, where it talks about the employee giving approval for that lump sum payment. And that's where you also find the information on whether or not you can take up to a 5% present value discount on a lump sum. So again, statute 176-101, if you're looking for that information. In this case, we paid the full lump sum, so the $2,364. Next, you have an option to say if the lump sum payment is being reduced, and then it'll give you a couple options here. Perhaps you are withholding for attorney fees, or perhaps you are withholding because of an overpayment on the claim. And then there is another category that you can put in other and explain. Again, one of the reasons might be that you are taking that up to 5% present value discount on the claim, or excuse me, on the lump sum. So you can put that information right there. I am making this determination. I am the claim admin. So my first and last name goes in here, as well as my phone number. And now you have the chance to attach supporting documents. So we showed this last week, a couple different ways you can do this. If you click right in the middle here, it'll bring up your little kind of find bar here. So I can go in and find my surgical report and click open, and it will attach it there. I'm going to remove it because you can also simply take, if I have my folder open, I can grab my document, my PDF right here, and just simply drag it and drop it. And then it will go right where it needs to go in that folder. For the document type, there's only a couple options here, which is kind of nice. You don't have to scroll so much. There's dependency and court orders, but really we're going to be utilizing the other supporting documents, and it will automatically fill in the description here. And you can amend that or change that as needed. So I might say surgical report 06/04/2019, just to make it a little bit easier for myself, because then when I upload it, you'll see it's listed here. The file name, the file type, and then the description that I put in is there. You can click on the trash can to go ahead and remove if you've accidentally uploaded the wrong thing, but also keep in mind that you can continue to click upload document and upload more than one attachment as needed, because sometimes you certainly do need that. I thought I saw some activity in the chat, so before I hit submit, is this a good time for me to address anything?
Yeah, Melissa, there's a few things in the chat. So one thing I just wanted to point out before we hop into the questions, this is not specific to campus, but I think just a good reminder from the compliance department. Melissa mentioned typing in the applicable PPD schedule and rule number. Just a reminder, make sure that you're looking at that from the date of injury, regardless of what your doctor may put on their report. So sometimes we see where they use outdated schedules, or they'll use a new schedule when it's an older date of injury. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to reach out to our compliance department, and they would be happy to assist. Or Melissa, I think, is going to pull up the PPD schedule here just to elaborate. Just a reminder, that's not specific to campus, but I know something I saw quite a bit when I was in compliance.
Yeah, that's a great reminder. So here I am on Minnesota rules. I'm in chapter 5223. And you'll see it, the way it's laid out, the very top of the page, you have all these schedule numbers, so it might be easy just to jump into those. But if you scroll down a little bit, it does explain for dates of injury on or after July 1st, 1993. And this is where you want to go. So what I typed in was the $450 here for the shoulder, which is what my employee had their PPD paid on. So you want to make sure you're in the right area of the schedule. Sometimes we do see doctors that will accidentally rate for the wrong schedule just based on date of injury, and you guys often correct that or we'll catch it as well. So just ensure that that's something you're doing. Thanks, Angie.
Yeah, thank you. So a couple questions in the chat. I can just field this first one. It just asks how claims are assigned to a particular person in campus. That is going to be covered in group management training. So if you're a group administrator, please make sure that you plan to attend that training. The group administrators would be the ones that would be responsible for handling any assignments of claims or allowing people to see specific claims. There's a few different methods for doing that. So Melissa's not going to cover that just because that is specific to group admins. So that will be covered in group management training. And then I'll jump into those other questions. So Melissa, the first one, if on November 15th of 2020, I make a PPD payment for a claim that started, let's say back in February, will the claim be in the campus system?
Good question. If as long as it's something that was reported to us, yes, it would be. So if it was reported to us prior to campus, I think is kind of what the question is getting at. We are migrating the claim information from our current system into campus, and then you as an EDI partner, a trading partner, or your vendor that you're working with are going to be filing URs, update reports, to introduce that claim from our old system into the new system. And that is something your EDI team and or trading partner and vendor have been working on and testing. So that's something they've already been testing with us.
Great. All
and
right.
You know what? I know we have another question, but just I'm going to quick submit form here because if we get really wrapped up in questions, I don't want to time out in the middle of my form, just in case we happen to have like 30 minutes or something of discussion. So I just wanted to get to that screen. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, so next question. If someone other than the case owner is entering this information on the PPD web form, can they enter the name of the case owner as the contact information of the person making the determination?
Yes, good question. On this field, and Angie, I'm going to ask you as well, is this field, what do you call it? Connected to the profile that they're logged in with? Do you know offhand?
Yeah, so I can kind of explain how that works throughout campus. So really the only time that we're going to be specifically looking 100% for the name to match the name of the profile is when you are signing something electronically. So in the case of what Melissa was showing you all, that was not an e-signature. So you truly can just put the name of the person making the determination, even if your admin staff is the one that is filling out the form. So that's kind of just a good rule of thumb for anywhere in campus. If you're serving something, a lot of the time it's going to ask for an electronic signature. That is going to have to match the name of the profile. But if it's something where they're just asking for the name of the person making a determination or the name of the claim handler or something of that nature, as long as it's not an e-signature, that should not be a problem.
Thank you.
Couple more here. So if we're taking the 5% discount, do we just enter the adjusted amount into the lump sum, or do we also need to indicate that it is being reduced?
You would put in the reduction amount that you're paying in the payment information, and also indicate that for other reasons, and then you can explain below what it was reduced by. For example, if it was, a $2,000 payment, but now you're reducing it by that present value discount, and therefore I'm paying this amount.
Great, thanks, Melissa. Couple more. Do we complete the PPD benefit screen, or I'm guessing you mean this form that Melissa just demonstrated, if we receive a 0% impairment? If so, will the page update with no payment information date?
You won't need to do it for a 0% impairment. We would expect, as you do now, that you would be sending in those medical reports, that you'd be uploading it to the claim so that we'd be able to see the report of the 0% rating. And if a payment's not being made, we do not need to have the web form filled out.
Great, thanks, Melissa. Do we need to complete this in addition to the EDI filing? So I think it would either be like a PY, a reinstatement, or a change in benefits or add benefit in a lot of those situations.
Yes, think of the PPD web form as something that you do in addition to the EDI filing. This has additional information like that schedule number. And in the case if you're paying ongoing PPD benefits, not a lump sum, it explains the frequency and the dollar or the weekly amount. For example, like in this one, I would have said that we would be paying $600 a month, or excuse me, $600 a week until the full amount was paid. And that information is something that's required to be given to the employee. So that's why the PPD web form exists, so we can get that additional information that is not covered in EDI. So think of it as when a PPD payment is being made, you need to do the web form. If you're paying the ongoing PPD, you don't have to file it at the beginning and at the end. You can just file it the one time related to that PPD. But there will be claims where you file this more than once because obviously PPD ratings can change, or there can be further PPD ratings down the road. And so if that happens on the claim, we would expect to see this more than once. And if we need it, we will ask for it. So you'd get a request from us as well saying, hey, we'd like to have this.
Great, thanks, Melissa. So I think this next question you might have answered a little bit in that last answer, but I'm going to read the complete question. If you are making periodic payments, if we are making periodic payments, do we determine when the last payment is due and then fill it out when we complete the initial PPD web form, or do we need to go back in when the final payment is issued as well?
You don't have to do it as well. You can do it right away at the beginning and state how much is going to be paid and then that weekly dollar amount, or if you're paying monthly for that claim, whatever the case may be, and just fill it out the one time.
Great, thanks, Melissa. A couple more. How would we enter multiple PPD ratings, or if there's more than one PPD rating, do we just add those all to one line?
Good question. You can certainly add in multiple schedule numbers up on that top line. I wonder if maybe I should get back to, now that I'm off the form here, I thought that would be helpful. I apologize. And put in more than one schedule number with the total PPD rating and the total amount that you're going to pay. And where was I can go back in, like I'm going to do another one. I'm going to go back to the submit filing here.
So
follow up and save. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Navigating to that, I just kind of wanted to throw in there. I think that there is a character limit on this schedule number, but I would recommend if you all are paying multiple ratings that you maybe just indicate an attachment with your complete schedule numbers if you do hit that limit. Compliance is going to be reviewing those attachments as well. So as long as you know that you have your schedule numbers at least in one place, they should be able to connect the dots.
Perfect. Yep. So you would have the space right up here to fit in, for sure, a schedule number, probably a couple. But if you do run into that limit, you could certainly type C attached. And then down here, when you upload your documents, you'd probably be uploading multiple medical reports if you have multiple ratings, and can also upload a list of those schedule numbers that you are paying on.
All right. One more question. Your chart indicated, and I'm guessing we're talking about the chart in the implementation guide, that the PUI EDI transaction will generate a form for service on the employees. Does anything additional need to be served at the time of the PPD form?
When you complete this form, and I'm going to cancel out of this one, and I will get to that answer. I was just going to show you here quick. I'm jumping over to my Gmail account here to show you, because I don't know that I did this last time, in my inbox where I got a submission confirmation that my PPD follow-up web form was submitted, and you can click from here and go into my form history. I just wanted to quick show that to you, and that would just take you back to your dashboard here. But if I'm on my claim and I go down to my documents, and I can find my PPD report here that I've submitted and click on the actual link. And from there, I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger here. I can take this, and you are able to download the document. You're also able to print it out here so that you can give this to the employee with the information, because this is where they're going to find, again, if you're making those periodic benefit payments, they're going to get the information when the initial payment was made, the rate, the dates, all that information here. the frequency of payments, and this is what you would then send to the employee to give them that information.
So just to clarify a little bit on that answer, so everything Melissa said is great information and true. I just wanted to make sure that it was 100% clear. The document that you received back for those PY transactions is not the same document that is generated by this web form submission. They are two distinct documents, so you would need to send them both. But everything Melissa said is 100% true. You would be able to navigate back in and grab this document so that you could send it to the employee as well, along with that NOBP document.
And that's part of why it's helpful to do this at the beginning, like of those, if you're paying ongoing PPD benefits, because you'll know that you're making that payment and therefore sending in the PY information to us and would be receiving that bounce back document. And at that same time, you can log in and do this web form to get this as well and send it all together. If you waited and did this later or forgot to do it and then got a reminder from us and did it later, that's fine as well. You can send it not together if you need to, but it's helpful probably to the employee and to you to be able to send it all together. And then I wanted to point out again that the related attachments are right down here at the bottom of the document that you can also download right from the document page here. And so if you had multiple, they would just be lined up here on the bottom. All right, other questions right now?
I don't see any other questions. I did just want to add one other really quick clarification. I know we've talked about the PUI at length, kind of related to PPD transactions. Do keep in mind that PPD is definitely not limited to the PUI. So if it's a situation where you're paying like PPD concurrently with temp partial, you can certainly do that via an add benefit transaction. If you're switching directly from TPD benefits to PPD benefits, you could do that as a CB or change benefit transaction. And if you are doing these periodic benefits and you've already discontinued a different type of benefit, you can certainly show us that the benefits are ongoing by filing a reinstatement of benefit transaction. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that there are multiple options for filing your PPD if it is not paid in a lump sum. And it looks like, Melissa, we did just get one more question, so I'll read that one off for you. For any of the web forms, we need to send those as well as anything returned from the EDI filing. Is that correct?
Not necessarily any of the web forms, but like this one particularly that we're on, yes. This would be sent to the employee, the bounce back from your PY if you did pay the lump sum on the PY, but Angie is correct. There's other ways, especially if you're paying the ongoing PPD payments, would be sent to the employee. When we talk about the dependency web form shortly, that's one example. That's information to us that doesn't need to be printed out and sent to the employee. So I just want to be clear that it's not for every web form.
Great clarification. And just a question, do we know which others require it? Are you specifically asking about the web forms that would require it?
I think so. I'll answer it that way for now, and then he or she can clarify. But for the web form, so last week we talked about the discontinuance web form, and that is sent to the employee. And we went through that, and that's part of the recording as well if you have questions on that. And then we also talked about the benefit addendum web form that is not sent to the employee. That is information coming here to the department when there's some questions on the indemnity payments that were made. We seem to see an error, perhaps we see an underpayment that we have questions on, and you can clarify to us the payments that were made. The example I gave last week was when you have a situation of a claim where benefits started and then stopped, and then started and stopped again. And let's say that I had forgotten, I'd failed to file the original discontinuance, that original suspension and then reinstatement. And now I had filed the latest suspension and can't go back to file the original suspension and reinstatement. So the benefit addendum web form was able to clarify that the two distinct periods of indemnity benefits had happened. It wasn't one long big period, and that part did not need to be sent to the employee. So those are the two from last week. Then today, the PPD web form, this one would be sent to the employee, the dependency would not.
Thanks, Melissa. I think one other one we may want to touch on is the disability status report. I know that's one that we have not demoed quite yet, but I believe that one kind of follows that same pattern. And I believe that the bulk of these documents, if the document is generated, I believe that there are specific instructions that let you know that a copy of it does need to be sent to the employee. We can verify all of that. We do not have, there was a question as to whether or not there are notifications that tell you which ones need to be sent. I don't believe that there are notifications in the system, but if that is a need, we can certainly take it down to create like a document that would let you know specifically which web forms need to be sent.
Sure.
And then,
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh no, I just had another question. So you go ahead, Melissa.
Oh, I was just going to say that when we went through the discontinuance web form, and depending on the questions we get today, if we have time, maybe we can even jump back into that later as needed. But there is the part where you're attesting to the discontinuance web form. You're marking off that I'm sending this to the employee, and it will state there if the employee has opted in for service through campus, like through an email, or if it's mail. And in my example, it was a mail situation, and so we had the address there. So part of that web form and part of you signing off is saying that you are going to send it to the employee. So on that discontinuous web form, that's the indicator, just that you're signing off saying that you will do it.
Thanks, Melissa.
Mm-hmm.
A couple more questions. Do all of the payments made on the claim today still show up on the back of these forms?
Nope, it is not on this web form. So yes, the front still looks pretty similar to kind of what the front of the notice of benefit payment looks like right now. And of course, the back of the NOBP had that information, but this particular web form is only going to give out the information of the payment that you're describing on the web form.
Great, thanks, Melissa. And then just a couple questions that it would be good to have the document just outlining what needs to be sent to the employee. As a general rule, if something it requires you to go through the service process, those do need to be served to the employee. That's pretty apparent as you're going through that process, but we can certainly pull something together for these documents that do not go through the service process.
Yeah, good questions.
And I do not have any others at this time.
Perfect. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and back out of this and go back just to my claim here. And let's see, so I already showed you, if I went down here to, I'd shown you the reporting history again, which again is the EDI filings. And I just wanted to clarify the difference there between that reporting history. But then if you go over to the documents, you can see the different documents that were either created off of the EDI filings or like the web form documents. And yes, there are a few here because I practiced this a couple times. So that's why it shows more than once here, but this was the one from today that I just demonstrated. So now I'm just going to go back out to my dashboard. And I'm going to move on to the dependency web form. All right, so I'm going to go into my claim here. All right, so I am now on a claim for Muriel Finster. Date of injury is 2/1 of 2019. And you can see here in the claim overview that the employee deceased is highlighted in that green circle to indicate that this is relevant on the claim so that we know that this is a death claim. We also can see here that the death result of injury is highlighted to indicate that that is what is submitted on the form, or excuse me, on the EDI filings. So in the case of a dependency claim, and again, just so we're all getting more and more familiar with the different tabs and what we have here, you can see that a first report of injury was filed, along with an IP initial payment has been filed so far by the trading partner on this claim. So we know that payment has started. With dependency claims, you will be submitting a dependency web form. So I went up here and clicked submit filing. And on the submit a filing button, I will pick the dependency info and click save. All right. So here we have the basic information on the claim, the employee's name, employer, a claim number, date of death is listed here. And the first thing you are going to be able to do is upload your document or upload attachments. So again, I can click or I can drag and drop, and I'm going to go in here and I've got some dependent information in a PDF that I'm going to upload, and you can see that it's listed right there. And I am going to go, again, we talked last week a little bit about the asterisk indicating that it is a required category. So I'm jumping right down to the document type, and I'm going to say that this is a proof of dependency. On a dependency, you might have several pieces of supporting information that you're attaching, and maybe you have something that is an other, like a school record or something like that. So you would be utilizing probably both of those. But here I'm going to change this to say general dependent information from, I'll put 6/2019. And then you can see it is listed right here, including my description. So that was just some helpful information I can put in for myself. If you upload the wrong thing, as always, you can go ahead and remove it, and you can utilize the upload document button more than once and upload several documents as needed for your attachments. But then the next thing I'm going to do is click on Add Dependent. And when you click on that button, you will get this dependent information drop down here, where I'm going to start to list my dependent information for this claim. My household is household 1. If you only have one household, then obviously that's what you'll be using, but there are cases, of course, that have multiple households when it comes to dependents, and so this is how you can differentiate what household the dependent is in. So I'm going to put in the information for Mr. Harold Finster. He is male, and in this case, he's the only dependent, and I'm putting in 100% allocation for him. His address, including the city, state, and postal code. Oops. When you do that, this country is going to pop up right there. So that was helpful. The phone and email, you'll notice, do not have asterisks, so they are not required, but of course they're very helpful. If you have that information and you can enter that information, it's great. Relation to employee, this was a spouse. Oh, I should leave that up a little bit longer. Sorry if I'm going a little bit fast here, but spouse, child, we've got disabled child, mother, father, sibling, and other. So there's a few different categories here you can choose from. In this case, the spouse, and the date of birth, as well as the birth order. A little bit more relevant when you have multiple dependents. In this case, I'm picking one. So next you have some boxes and some options here to let us know, is this is this dependent a full-time student? And if so, please attach supporting documentation to verify student status. So that's just a reminder that if you're saying they're a student, you'll want to do that. If the dependent is a disabled dependent, and there is no pop-up here, but attachments and documentation is always helpful to have for that. And then if they are receiving Social Security survivor benefits, in which case you will be entering the monthly amount, and there's an effective date and a ceased date for that as well. I'm going to uncheck that, and there's a place here for notes. So again, information that might be helpful to us and also to you, but you might have a student situation where you're anticipating the student is going to remain a full-time student through this year, but perhaps not after that. And if you wanted to note that or other information, that's helpful as well. So once you've finished uploading, data entering the information on your dependent, you can click on Add Dependent to add another one. And then you simply get the same drop down here of all the information, and maybe I'd start filling in if there were multiple dependents here for the next person, the next dependent. But I can remove this. So, before I do that, I'll scroll up. So you can still see that all the information for Harold is listed up here. And now I've got my second dependent information here. But I'm going to remove, and that just takes away the one that I chose to remove. So Harold still is there. And then you have a couple options here. You have Add Dependent, which we just did, Submit, which we will do shortly. You can save it as a draft. So if you have started on this and you need to come back to it later, you can certainly do that, or you can cancel as well. So I'm going to submit my form. And I get my confirmation here that was successfully submitted, along with my document link, confirmation number, and then shortly, if not already, if I went back to my Gmail account, there would be, or to my email account, there would be the confirmation email saying that it was successfully submitted to the department.
Melissa, we've got a couple questions on that form.
Okay.
So the first question, is this used for the initial payment and ongoing SSD supporting ongoing offsets of death benefits?
Ooh. So the information is used to give us, or this web form is used to give us more information on the dependents, including that Social Security information. We know that that changes, and we know that dependent information can change, who is a dependent, who's not. And we would anticipate that on many dependency claims, this would be filled out more than one time. So you can always update that information and update by giving us supporting documentation if that information changes. So it is used to give us the dependent information and the SS information so that we have that and can understand the payments being made on the dependency claim.
Yeah, I would just add to that, this form does not replace anything that you would report to us via EDI. So you would still report your initial payment and any offsets that you are taking. A couple more questions. Will this data populate and create the form if the dependent information is included on the IP?
On the initial payment? No, the IP is not going to auto-populate the dependency web form. What does auto-populate is that information at the top of the form that had the employee's name, claim number, employer information, that came from the claim. So that comes from the FROI and the IP and things being submitted, updating our claim in campus. That information is then pulled into the top of the web form. But other information, what I data entered here is what you would still need to do.
Thanks, Melissa. There's another question. Why is the spouse listed as birth order 1? What are the other options? I can actually field that one if you want, Melissa.
Sure, thank you.
So we are requesting that birth order is completed essentially for the purposes of us being able to match people up or make sure that everything kind of makes sense with what is submitted via EDI. In EDI, we have a birth order for spouses as well. So we've gotten some feedback that people would rather not use birth order on this form. So that is feedback that we have taken to possibly remove this field in the future. But for the time being, you would list your spouse as birth order 1 just because they are going to be the oldest person likely on this form. If you don't want to list them as 1, you can certainly list them as the last number. If you want to list the children as 1, 2, 3, or whatever first. Essentially, that birth order is just kind of for us to compare against the EDI data. I don't have any other questions right now, Melissa.
Oh, great. You know, I did think of one thing that I had caught that actually, if we have time, I wanted to show. So bear with me for just a moment here. I'll go back on that claim that I was on. And hopefully, as we kind of walk through this again, this is getting very familiar to some of you for what we're clicking on. So I'm hoping that that helps a little bit since you're not in the system quite yet. But I just went back to do a dependent information web form again. And actually, you can see this is kind of helpful to know that there's information here from Harold from the last time, so you don't have to re-enter it. So let's say that a new dependent was found, or you have information now on another dependent, and you wanted to submit this again. You don't have to resubmit all the information from Harold again because it was saved in here. You would simply go down to add dependent and then add in the new information. One of the things that I wanted to point out, and I'm hoping this won't happen too often, but just in case it were to happen, and we've already put in some feedback to get a fix on this, but if you look at the state, province element here on the address for the dependent, you'll see that there are states, obviously, and then like Canada and Mexico, I believe, are covered, but this is not an inclusive list of every state or province in the world, for example. So if you have someone outside of the United States and you pick a different country, we realized that there wasn't an other option, and that is something we're working to fix. And what I had talked with our business side about was that if this happens again, it would be pretty rare, I would think. Maybe not so rare for some of you who work a lot with the dependency claims, but we would ask that you choose Minnesota, and then you can go down here in the notes and explain in a little more detail what was missing out of the state province field, and then we can get that fixed. And then we'll also be working hard to get an other option or some other options in that state field. but I wanted to point that out in case it comes up for anyone. All right, well, if we don't have other questions, a few less questions than last week. So we have some time now. If anyone had general questions that have come up, if we wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the training that is being offered, or looking at either of the web forms from last week, those were the two quick reference guides that were planned for today's answer hour. And I know we have some time left, so I'll give it a minute here, or more than a minute. We'll give it some time to see if more questions come in or comments, and feel free. I forget, Angie, if they're able to unmute themselves on this particular call, but if they are, it's easier to ask a question. I welcome that as well.
Yeah, so you can certainly unmute yourself if you need to ask a question verbally. I did just get a comment or question asking if you can show some other forms.
Sure, I can definitely do that. Let me. Oh, hi.
Hi, I have one question. This is Deanne. It was actually in follow-up to our last Q&A session. I had asked on the discontinuance web form if the claim rep name is coming from the EDI transaction versus the web form, where our payments and forms group is going to sign the affidavit of service, and you were going to follow up on that to see.
Thank you for that reminder. I apologize for that.
Sure.
So Angie had talked a little bit about for the affidavit, when it actually links to that signature, whoever's filling out the form on that web form would need to put their name in, because they are signing that they are doing that work. Angie, please correct me if I'm not stating that completely accurately.
That's correct. So when you are e-signing something, it does need to match the name of the person who is actually doing the e-signing. But I believe for the
Sure.
purposes of that suspension or that discontinuance web form, it would not populate that person's name on that form. It would only be on that affidavit of service.
Okay, so yeah, within that form itself, there was the claim rep like field, and I think it defaulted, but we couldn't tell at that time how it was doing it. So that's one that we would the whoever is filling it in, if it's not the claim rep, they could enter the claim rep's name within that form, and then whoever is doing the service would sign their name. Is that correct?
I'm going to jump into that web form.
Yeah, and maybe
And
I'm
do
just
some
not
credit.
remembering it correctly.
You know what? It's hard to think of that when we're not looking at it for myself. I
Right.
can't imagine. And I've been playing around in this clearly more than you have. So let me go back in here. And now, for those who maybe weren't on the call last time, I did just access my claim, clicked on submit a filing, just like we've done today many times, and clicked on this time the discontinuance web form here. So I'm going to go on here. And I'm going to explain that I am discontinuing temp total benefits. I don't have an MMI service date in this case. But let's see here. I am serving this on, I think I did 4/10/2019, and payment will be made through 4/10/2019. And this was a, forgive my shorthand for a moment here, employee released to return to work, refused job offer. And I've shown you the upload attachment several times today, so I won't walk through that right now unless anybody wants me to do that. But so here we have the affidavit of service portion, where I'm going to say that I am serving my employee, and the date being today, because I'm going to be serving what I'm creating today, or I could do it in the future. And then is this down here where what you were talking about, Deanne?
Well, now that I'm looking at it, that's a little bit different than I remember. So I apologize. I do
Oh,
think
that's okay.
I do understand now. That would be whomever is signing this as the
Mhm.
declaration of service. So
Yeah.
okay. Yep.
Does
Sorry
that
about that.
no apologies, please. Like I very much think other people probably have the same questions. I am glad that you brought that up. And it helps to see this again, I'm hoping.
It does. It definitely does. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Melissa, I've just
Hmm.
got, while you're completing that, just a question and a comment, I think, for a future training session. Just will there be a review of what all forms look like when returned via EDI transaction? I think we can definitely take that down as feedback for our next session to review those.
Returned. I'm just, forgive my silent, or not being silent, but I'm scribbling some notes here. Actually, probably makes more sense. I'll just copy and paste that. But yeah, that's a really good idea. And actually, one of the things that I wanted to end with when we end later, but I'll shout out for it right now as well. My first two demos here last week and this week, I really did want to focus on those web forms because we received so many comments and questions and people wanted more information on them. So I'm hoping that's been helpful. I don't have a set plan quite yet exactly. For my next answer hour, I was waiting to see some feedback and what still remained as questions. And so if people have ideas just like that, of things that you'd really like either an overview on or some sort of a specific functionality or something that you'd like to see, I'd love to have those comments because I am happy to show some things that I come up with as well. But if there's something specific that seems to be a pretty common question or concern for people, I'd like to have the chance to walk through that next Wednesday. So please do put that either in the chat or you can certainly email outside of that as well. We'll be showing the email addresses and such soon. But I like that feedback. Thank you. I also wanted to point out, speaking of some of the feedback, so the questions that were asked on the answer hour last week, we took and we went through them and wrote up answers and kind of figured out which were the most frequently asked and came up with that FAQ list that went out on the communication that comes out weekly. So last Friday, there was a communication that came out that would have included questions and answers from the answer hour. And we'll be doing the same here. And not only for the answer hour, but if we get questions outside of it, we obviously consider those as well. And we are trying to create that list of questions and answers to go out in the weekly communications and hoping that's helpful.
I apologize. My mute button keeps getting blocked. So but we've got a few other questions in the chat. So one is, we currently complete MMI letters and fax them to the state. Will we still complete these and upload them to campus? Or is there a place in campus where we can complete these?
Yes, there is. You will be uploading those in campus. And so I'm going to switch over real quick to the training here because I just wanted to point out that there is a specific training on uploading to documents in campus right here. And so that's going to be tomorrow from 10 to 11:30 a.m., not only to upload documents in campus, but also just general question and answer time tomorrow as well. So hopefully that training will be helpful there.
All right. Thanks, Melissa.
Sure.
Couple more questions. Any possibility to get a list of required fields for every web form? This will assist with our training ahead of release to know what must be communicated to those who are filling out the forms if they are not the case owner. We can certainly look into that. I think that's something that would potentially require a decent amount of effort on the DLI front. So I would say it's probably not likely that we would be able to do that for each web form. But as Melissa mentioned, if there's an asterisk on those web forms, that indicates that it's a required field.
Yeah, and I'm looking at, because I had printed out the quick reference guide, just that I could refer to it today. And I know by the time you print it out and it's in a document, it is pretty small. But I'm looking in on the screenshots, you can kind of see the asterisks that are there. So as backup, if we aren't able to do that right away or while we work on that, that's one thing that people could look at, is just look at those fields. But I do understand that is very small print by the time you're looking at screenshots on a document with instructions. So we'll definitely take that as feedback.
Thanks, Melissa. Another question, can you show us where we would complete either the notice of penalty payment or the objection to the penalty if we receive a notice from the state? That might require some additional data staging on our end. So maybe next week, Melissa, does that?
So a couple of things about that. There is a specific training on that. Viewing penalties and filing objections. So that's going to be on October 22nd from 10 to 11:30 that you can register for. However, I can definitely put that on my list as something we can review. I will admit sometimes I when I look at the training that's being offered, and then also with the answer hour time that I have, I'm trying to find that balance. I don't want to simply repeat everything that's going on in training, because I want to make the best use of our time if there's other issues that we can cover. But if we've covered kind of the main ones, and that's really something that it would be helpful for people to see more than once, or of course, if you can't make the training and would like to see it live, I certainly can add that to my list. I would need to set up a couple requests, because when you are doing that, you would actually receive the penalty, and the notification of that would have a link included where you could go in and view that penalty and then respond, object, things like that. I don't have that data available right now on the profile I have, so I can't show that whole process. But yes, long story short, there is specific training on that, and also I can add it to my list for next week as an option of something that I can cover.
Great, thanks, Melissa. A few more here. For the discontinuance, will we still need to send this to the employer and the employee? And then with filing the form, does that serve as the discontinuance being submitted to the state?
When you submit the discontinuance web form, that is the discontinuance being submitted to the state. The discontinuance web form is in addition to the EDI filing. So in EDI, you will either be filing a suspension or a partial suspension, so an SX or a PX. And again, the discontinuance web form is only used in cases when the reason for the discontinuance is other than return to work. So you will not be filing this web form every single time you file a suspension or a partial suspension. But in those cases where the reason is other than return to work and you file this web form, it is in addition to the EDI filing. So you will be doing both, but when we receive this discontinuance information on the web form and we see the date that you're serving the employee and making payment through, those are the dates we're looking at when we're looking for compliance with the statute and rule.
Thanks, Melissa.
Sure.
There was a question, just a request to post the link for the FAQs. I think you are talking about the FAQ document. If so, I've just posted that link in the chat. There's a question here that just says, how about a DSR form? So I
sure.
might need some additional context on that. Just
I'm guessing maybe to walk through a DSR form.
Maybe.
Yep,
Okay.
I will put that on my list. And also, I'm going to mention that there are rehab answer hours. And I'm trying to recall, that's on Fridays from 11 to noon. And I'm trying to recall if that was on the list of something they're going to demo, but I will look into that, and I will put that on my list of something that we can maybe look at next week, or to come back with information on where, when, if it's covered elsewhere, where that is and when.
Thanks, Melissa. There was a section that showed all of the ESR filings that have been completed on a claim. Does this show only accepted transactions, or would rejected transactions show here too? I'm going to go ahead and assume that ESR means EDI.
Probably, yes.
So, in the reporting history tab, I think.
Yeah, so on mine, and we talked a little bit, I'm going to cancel my web form here, and I didn't need to submit all the way. So we talked a little bit last week about how when I set up my trading partner, I am a e-form submitter, which means I log into campus and data enter the information. And when you are an e-form submitter, you will always have success, because we don't allow it to be submitted if there are errors. So definitely it's only going to show successful ones because of my status as an e-form on the examples I'm giving. But then Angie, I might need your help on this. I'm thinking of our internal view, but on the external view, does it show any rejected filings?
Yeah, that's a good question. I believe that it will show all of the filings on the external site. And then let's just see here, a couple more questions. Just to mention that adjusters do file the DSR as an FYI. So yes, Melissa's got that, and she can add some additional context for that one. And then there was just a question about how to register for training. I did put the link in the chat for how to register for training. So
perfect. So follow that link, and I'll go right on my page here as well. So for example, if you follow that link, you're going to end up here right at the top of the Work Comp Campus training page. And then here's the list. So if you kind of scroll down, keep in mind this first column gives some hints on who the training is applicable for. And so if you scroll down to the viewing penalties and filing objections, you'd click over here on the registration button. And then a general reminder that if you are unable to come to the training, we are posting the recordings and the documentation when they're finished, and they will be available online as well for you to watch.
Thanks, Melissa. I don't see any other questions right now.
Great. All right, well, I will say that I am going to hang out on this call for a few minutes at least, in case there are any other questions that do come up. No rush there. But for those who are who have their questions answered for today, you can definitely drop off. I have on our screen a reminder about the Work Comp Modernization Program email address, the dli.wcmp, and all of our email addresses, of course, being at state.mn.us if you have questions, and then also the help desk information, which is live right now. You can call either of the two numbers listed, the 651 number or the 800 number. They're option 3. And they also have an email address for the help desk, which is helpdesk.dli@state.mn.us. And that is available now and will be available as we go live for support. And thank you, Angie, who just put a link as well in the chat. And then a reminder for our next answer hour on Wednesday, October 21st, again from 10:30 till noon. And yeah, that's the presentation for today. But like I say, I will be happy to stay on for longer time here and see if there's any other questions that come up. But otherwise, thanks to everyone for participating and for your questions.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Melissa, I'll go ahead and give it another minute just in case anything trickles in the chat. And then if not, I can just end the meeting at that time.
That sounds great. Thanks, Angie. I guess as people are dropping off, just one final reminder, that training link that Angie said put out in the chat a couple times here, definitely look at it. We briefly looked at it today, but there is training that is happening almost daily right now for this week and next week when you include the answer hours as well. So there's a lot of activity you can sign on for and log into to ask questions live or watch presentations live, and then also the email addresses on the screen or the phone call. Make a phone call to the help desk, and we're happy to answer your questions.
All right, I don't see any additional questions in the chat, so I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting.
Perfect. Thanks, Angie. Thanks to everyone.
Thanks, everybody.